I didn't know it at the time, but what got me free from OCD in terms of having the diagnosis, I now know is mindfulness. It's a radical acceptance that I don't have control over my thoughts. I don't have control over the existence of evil in the world. I can't escape death. Death is going to come to me and everybody I love, and I had to like radically embrace this reality that I don't have control, and I'm going to suffer. Sometimes the people I love are going to suffer, and I don't get to control it. And when I gave up trying to control was when I got freedom from OCD. There's a huge body of research that shows the more we resist or try to avoid anything in terms of, you know, the mental experiences we have, the more likely we are going to have intrusive, unwanted, you know, thoughts, what it is we're trying to avoid.
Like, I'm usually like more likely to get distracted, but I feel like if I really did focus and meditate more often, then it would benefit me more.
Mindfulness helps people allow their emotional experience, like the fear, the sadness, and let go of a lot of the what are called the secondary emotions, the anxiety, which is always about the future, the depression, which is always about the past. Mindfulness helps us drop into what's really here right now. And, you know, is there any source of danger in my life right now? If not, well then I need to let go of you know, all of this energy that's going into making my body respond as if I'm about to be killed, you know, or hurt in some way. So mindfulness helps us do that. And I personally, like, I lost my mom very early. It turns out she had PTSD before she had OCD. She had been traumatized. So I guess I was like 7. We lived with her for 3 years until she just couldn't really function anymore. But there was so much sadness about not having my mom. It was way easier for me to be obsessing about, am I, you know, right in the eyes of the Lord, did I say that prayer the right way, than it was for me to acknowledge a loss. And that's the case for many people with anxiety disorders. It's easier for them to be worried about the future than it is for them to allow how things are right now, including major losses. In order to treat OCD, we need people to essentially go to the places they don't want to go. In scrupulosity OCD, that's sometimes hard. In contamination OCD, so get your hands dirty and don't wash and see that nothing bad happens and the fear peaks and passes. But in scrupulosity OCD, we have to get people to go to hell because that's where they fear they're going. And we can't very well do that in real life, so we do it in imagination. And we actually thereby desensitize them to their own thoughts, get them more comfortable having thoughts that are undesirable and feelings that are undesirable, and trusting that they will peak and pass, they will come and go, and they won't destroy the person. Like, mindfulness teaches you of the impermanence of everything. Nothing lasts forever, except for maybe awareness.
In terms of OCD, there's a book called Brain Lock. I think the author's name is Schwartz, in which he has his patients label an obsessive thought he has them say, it's not me, it's my OCD. And finally, he goes through this process in which he has someone do another activity that is highly stimulating, in which they're highly involved in that activity for 15 minutes. And he actually claims that he can rewire a part of the brain that's kind of serves as a clutch. That kind of like when a thought comes into your consciousness, it serves as a clutch to let it go out. So he argues that people with OCD lack that clutch, and so they have an idea and they're just stuck with that idea. It just keeps happening over and over again.
The non-judgmental piece of mindfulness, meaning we actually can't not judge. Our brains are wired to judge. We've got these amygdalae, one on each side, that are constantly deciding, is this good, is this bad, or is it not relevant to my survival? So when Jon Kabat-Zinn says mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment on purpose and non-judgmentally, it's impossible for us humans to not judge. But what we can do is we can let go of judgment, and we can be aware of judgment when it's happening, and how we're constantly evaluating things as pleasant, unpleasant. And there's a theory of emotion, dimensional theory of emotion, that says all emotions are broken down into essentially valence, which is the judgment, is this good or bad or neutral, and intensity. And mindfulness actually, by helping us become aware of when judgment is occurring and when it's unnecessary and when we can let go of it, this appraisal, things are good, things are bad, causes a lot of emotional experience that is it adds to suffering, and it's not grounded in reality. So not only does it help us ground experience in reality, but it helps us let go of the very judgments that create intense emotions, and it helps us experience things like intense sensations in the body in a way that they don't overwhelm us as much. Like John Kabat-Zinn actually first introduced mindfulness to people, like I said, who had pain that wasn't responding to any other sort of treatment. And it turns out that pain, that's the experience of this is unpleasant, right? We can make it much worse when we add the stories to the pain, like this is never going to go away, this is going to last forever. There's, and then the pain gets worse and worse, and all of our attention zooms in on the experience of, what's wrong with this body and all the ways it's going to get in the way. When in reality, if we can just drop into pain sensations, throbbing, pay bare attention to the experience of the pain, heat, we see the pain is actually itself dynamic and ever-changing and separate from our stories about it. It turns out that mindfulness is really helpful for people with emotional disorders like OCD, because the reality is once you have an OCD brain, you have it for life. I don't meet diagnostic criteria for OCD anymore, but I have an OCD brain. Obsessions come all the time. I choose not to do the compulsions, and I learned the obsessions go away even though I don't, even without the compulsions, they're impermanent. If you're walking around with OCD and you're focused on you're focused on trying to control it, and you're focused on essentially, the bad deck of cards you've been dealt, and how unfair it all is, you're going to really add to your suffering.
Bringing some of this air in and noticing as it becomes the breath. Receiving the breath wherever the sensations are most vivid. Perhaps noticing the breath in the face region, entering the nose or the mouth. Maybe noticing sensations of the breath in the throat, traveling down what we call the trachea, into the lung region. Maybe noticing the sense of expansion on the in-breath as the lungs open up to receive the air.
A really important piece of mindfulness is compassion, what's called loving kindness. You can just allow the OCD as a part of, your experience. You can let go of judgment about it. It actually does have good things that come with it. Like it can make some people very detail focused. Makes people persist. People with OCD are actually more extroverted as a group than those without. So that's not just like they're gregarious and social. It's that they have more energy, more ability to persist. Than the average person if they have that energy. So if you can just bring a non-judging kind of way of relating to your internal and external experience, or let go of judging and be more compassionate, you're going to reduce your suffering. Like if you don't add all the extra layers to, I have a brain that creates OCD symptoms, so it is what it is. Like if you don't add all the extra layers, this isn't fair, why me, this is embarrassing, whatever, there's something, wrong with my brain. If you don't add that, you can live a life just as full as any other human can. And if you see the bigger picture, there's actually really good things that come with having the kind of brain that creates OCD symptoms. So the loving kindness piece is something that's really important. Being loving and kind in how you relate with your internal and external experience. That too is mindfulness. A really important component of it, actually.
I would say that religion, and I'm not as far as I understand it, I'll say obsessive compulsive disorder is a bit like some other addictions that when people can take a drink and be sociable and walk away, then it's okay. But when their lives are negatively affected by drinking to excess, then we call it the disease of alcoholism. And that a person confessing their sin to God and receiving God's forgiveness can be a healthy part of spirituality. But if it becomes something that interferes either with the life that God wants you to live or the kind of good that you can do for others, then it's interfering with your life. And like an addiction would be something that has taken on a form that, you know, in itself isn't bad, but the form is bad. The excessiveness of it is an indication of a problem. And I believe that God, as he says in the Gospel of John, God wants us to have life and have it abundantly. And that anyone suffering from OCD is finding their lives limited instead of filled with abundance.